Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for retired teacher, Pat Kelly, who passed away. She did a number of years in our district, and most recently for a 36-year-old former 2004 graduate student, Jeffrey Gray. Thank you. Be seated. Entertain a motion for the acceptance of the minutes of the April 18, 2023 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? No one? Motion carries. Public forum for this evening? No. No one. We'll move on to presentations. We have a real good thing here. We're going to be recognizing Miss Amelia Benjamin, student athlete. Miss Benjamin, could you please rise? Come forward over here. I'd like to recognize and congratulate Amelia Benjamin. Come on in here, don't be shy. Amelia, for an amazing 2022-23 indoor track season, we recognize the following accomplishments. Section 9, second place in the 55-meter dash, 7 minutes and 47 seconds. I think I could do that in 7:46. Section 9 champion in the 300-meter dash, 42 minutes and 4 seconds. Section 9 high jump champion, 5'9", a new Section 9 record. State high jump championship, second place. National championship, 11th place, presented by the Ellenville Central School Board of Education this May 9, 2023. Congratulations, you made us proud.
Amelia, I'm just going to ask you to come around and shake your board's hand. I'm sure everyone will adopt that.
Thank you, Amelia. Round of applause for her once again. Ellenville has a lot to be proud of. We have a lot of students, a lot of athletes that do wonderful things, even in our arts program and our athletic programs. I always feel that we are under-recognized in our community for the accomplishments of our students in the media. And I think that all media outlets need to pay attention to what goes on, what goes down here in Ellenville, just not the negative, that's for sure, because there's a lot of positive things that happen in our community, and there's a lot of community leaders and a lot of community people that do wonderful things. And I'd like to point out somebody who saved my life and helped me get back, and she's my cardiac rehab person, and she's right there in the audience. Karen Knoll, thank you for all you did for me, getting me back to run 2 miles again, 3 miles, thank you. And Ellenville has a wonderful cardiac rehab unit. Anybody that is ever suffering for any cardiac issues can go down and see the people down at Ellenville Hospital, which does a wonderful job for our community. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll move on to Mr. Vince Napoli on our budget hearing. Oh, I'm sorry. You guys don't have to stay for this if you don't mind. I'm sorry. If you are interested, don't feel free that you have to leave. I mean, you know. Amelia, congratulations again. Thank you so much for making us proud.
Okay, thank you. So tonight is our budget hearing. We've covered just about everything I'm going to talk about tonight in our previous workshops. So the slides that I've covered in great detail previously, I'll just hit the highlights. There are a couple that I want to stop and pause on. So our budget year-to-year comparison, the budget is up just over 7%. But I'd like to point out that the tax cap is at 4.52%, which is below the tax levy limit by about 0.5%.
I just want to reiterate that for everyone that's listening. We are below the tax levy cap. I just think that
What is our
sometimes
cap?
there's some confusion about that we're below the tax, the
What
cap.
is our cap?
The cap is tell me what the cap is?
The cap is 5%, and we're at 4.52.
So Vince, what I want, if you could, just when you get to it, go over exactly what that implication of the 4.52 means for the different townships.
Yep, that's one of the slides that I'm going to take a little bit more time on tonight that we haven't really gone into great detail. One thing I'd like to point out with the reason why the budget is up 7%, a big chunk of it has to do with our debt financing, paying for the project that we're currently in now, as well as the project that we finished in 2014. So that is rough capital, including the BOCES and the SROs, pushes our budget up in that section roughly 131%, or $3.8 million. So a big chunk of that 7% is in those numbers.
And does that include the BOCES capital project?
That
Jim?
includes the BOCES capital project, that's correct.
And budget growth, when you say 7%, it's a number that we're throwing around. Sometimes it gets misconstrued and when it's reported out to the media, but it's different compared to what the tax levy actually is.
So the tax levy is just a component of the revenues that we use to pay for our budget. So most of our revenues come, and we'll go over this tonight briefly, most of our revenues come from taxes and state aid. There are some other parts of it, such as our federal aid, that help us cover or balance our budget, where we collect our monies or our revenues to cover our expenses.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Napoli, I'd just like to thank you for going over this slowly. Some people don't understand it all, and there's misunderstanding out there, and I appreciate you going over this as slowly as you are.
You are welcome. And if there's something that it seems like I'm going too fast on, please ask me to stop. I'll spend more time on it. So, for example, in the last 12 years that I've been doing this, I've often been asked what makes up our budget, and we break it down into a three-part component. There's the administrative component, which is administration, buildings and grounds, tax collection, some benefits. So that's part of our budget. It's up on the slide up on the left. That's $8 million worth. Most of our expenses have to do with our programs. That's our teaching staff. We are people heavy. That's what we do. We provide services through people. So $45 million of our budget are our teaching staff. They are the day-to-day people that work with our students. And then the capital component, which I referenced earlier, is at just under 7%. So that has to do with our boilers, HVAC, borrowing money, paying for all of this, asbestos abatement, our buildings and grounds, things we do in our auditorium. So that's our capital component. So when schools look at a budget, we break it into a three-part budget, and those are the three areas where we break it down, or how we look at it: admin, capital, and programs.
So one thing I just want to clarify, because you threw the term out, people heavy. It doesn't mean that we're heavy in the amount of people that we have. We're adequately staffed. It just means that that's what the expenditures are.
That's where the bulk of
I
our
don't want your
monies
comment
go.
to be misconstrued
Yeah,
in any
well,
way.
thank you for that clarification. Most of our expenses go to personnel expenses.
But we're adequately staffed, not overstaffed.
That is correct.
Thank you.
I'll quickly go over the three-part budget here. So, and this is what we talked about. So we have salaries, benefits, our buildings, curriculum instruction, and these are all areas that I've covered in the past, but this is looking at it from a different lens. This presentation is also available here in paper copy, as well as on our website under the 23-24 budget. So if you can go to our website, there's a link directly there, or if you want to look at prior year budgets, hover over the district, business office, budget, and you'll see the last couple of years that we have there. I've got this year, last year, and the next year, this year, and the prior year. People want to look at it in more detail for those years. Revenues, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I've already talked about it, but and this slide is how we pay for our expenses.
I just want to point one thing out on projected revenue so people could see it. You know, we've been very lucky over the last 2 years to have an increase of state aid. If you remember in the news, we've been underfunded because of the foundation formula. So this year, we got a big increase in state aid. So when you look at the revenues and you look at the increases, our state aid is up 12.12%. So what Mr. Napoli is going to tell you is that really there's two areas where you have your revenues. One's taxes locally, the other is state aid and federal aid. But, you know, in order to offset the 7% of the budget increase, we were able to do that with the increase in state aid and then a combination of the increase in taxes. So I just want to bring that forward. I also just want to say, going back to the staffing, for many years here, we've done without staff, without the support staff of social emotional supports, of counselors, social workers, and since ESSER came and we've been able to sustain the additional support that we've had through grants and also through the general fund. So we've done, because of the lack of state aid, we've done with less for a long period of time. So very thankful that the foundation formula is being restated over the past 2 years, hence the increase in foundation aid.
And one thing that we've talked about before is we've been underfunded in our foundation aid for many years. Those of you who've been on the board for a while, we spent many years talking about the gap elimination adjustment. So while we're seeing a big increase here, these are funds or revenues, whatever we're going to look at it, that we should have gotten years ago, and finally the state is making us whole on what they've been owing us for years. They didn't make up the money that they owed us, that they didn't give us in the past, but now we're at where we should be. But we weren't at these numbers for the last, I don't know, maybe 14 years. So that's something that we'd like to point out. So the board president talked about the implications by town. So this is kind of hard to project what it's going to look like in the fall when we actually levy the taxes. But based on today's equalization rates and the assessments, someone's home who has an assessed value of $100,000, they can expect their taxes to go up with today's numbers. And I've got the 3 towns listed: the town of Awarsing, Mamakating, and Rochester. Rochester, there's only a small number of homes that are in the town of Rochester, but the town of Awarsing, we can expect it to go up $68, and then Mamakating up $310. Those numbers will change in September when we do this, again, with the current equalization rates, and when we levy the taxes in the fall.
So one of the challenges we have, and all schools have, is when you're preparing and you're estimating what your taxes are going to be, we only have the assessed valuation really of last year with some modifications. But the other thing we wait for in August is for the New York State Real Property Services to give us equalization rates. But the purpose of equalization rates are to equalize the tax impact amongst the municipalities in a school district. Like other schools, we have 3 different towns that belong within the Ellenville School District, and the taxes have to be what we say apportioned. How that gets apportioned is out of the school district's control. They give you the assessed valuation and they give you an equalization rate, and it goes into a calculator, and based on those numbers, especially the equalization rate, that will determine how it's apportioned amongst the communities, the 3 towns. I will say that revaluations in towns have a big impact on equalization rates. Equalization rates bring your assessed valuation as close to true value as 100%. But over the years, when you do a revaluation, you're at 100%, then over the years it dwindles down until you have another revaluation. If you have another revaluation, they're very controversial, right? And whether they happen or not is up to the townships. What we have to deal with is what the state gives us. So I think it's important for people in the community to understand we don't make those numbers, we don't apportion this, we just put the numbers in a calculator, and we look at what we have. And these numbers will be different one way or another when we levy the tax in August.
Right, so thank you for that. That was a great explanation. So our job here is to levy the tax, and the state helps us with all of the other numbers. And that happens in the fall when we adopt the warrant and you authorize me to levy the tax. So one of the things that I'd like to spend longer than a brief moment is talk about a contingent budget. So in the event that the budget gets defeated twice, so if the budget gets defeated the first time, the board can choose to go out and have another vote, and we can have the same number, we can change the numbers, or the board can immediately choose to go to a contingent budget. When that happens, there are certain things that we are not authorized to purchase under a contingent budget, and most of them are capital related. That's maybe a vehicle or a tractor or something that's along the lines of capital. But the big thing that changed with the tax cap in 1213 is that we are not permitted to increase the tax levy from what it is this current school year. So what I mean by that is that right now the tax levy is going up 4.52%. It would go up 0%. So then we have some decisions to make at that time. We would maybe cut programs, appropriate some fund balance. That means take money out of our savings to cover up the difference. So that's what happens if any school has to go to a contingent budget. There are financial implications, could be program implications, funding implications. So that's something that's important for everyone to know about what happens if the budget is defeated. So I kind of jumped a slide there, but this slide here talks about some of the FAQs. How do we vote? So we're voting here in the Senior High School Media Center from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. All schools vote on the same day. It's the third Tuesday of of May. Freudian slip there. All schools vote on the same day. If you can't make it, you can see Ms. Hempt in the superintendent's office for an absentee ballot. And then just as a reminder, it is here in this room right here. Everyone could enter through that door. There'll be plenty of parking. There'll be security attendants, people directing any member of the community who wants to vote, who doesn't know where to go, how to get here. This is going to be laid out very different than it is now. It's really easy in, really easy out. Voting is done electronically, so it's not like it was many, many years ago. It's a pretty easy process.
Vince,
Thank
could
you.
you
Yes,
spend
sir.
just one question about the contingent budget? How does that affect next year's budget going forward if we had to have a contingent budget? How would that, what implications would be on next year's budget?
So that would be a long-term financial burden on the district. So any monies that we could have levied, we can never levy going forward. We lose that opportunity. So while it may be something, let's say it's $1 million that we can't levy for the next school year, that's $1 million every year that we're not levying. So there's long-term implications unless the board chooses to try to make that up by exceeding the tax cap. And I will tell you that most schools that have tried to exceed the tax cap, their budgets fail.
Can I
Yeah,
make a
go ahead.
comment? So I just also would like to comment about that. So, you know, we stay within the cap, and there have been years where the cap's been under 1% or closer to 0. And in a year like this, where you have a huge increase of state aid and some grants, you can offset some of that. But in years where we know that it happened, it's very cyclical, where the state we don't get state aid from the state because of economic conditions, and the tax cap is 0. Very often we find ourselves, as many other schools do, in a position where you have to, you know, cut programs. You know, we're very lucky we're not there, but it's important to strike that balance every year to make sure we're building capacity within our financial situation. And, you know, going back a few years ago, we maintained our programs and we were using a lot of our reserves up. And that becomes dangerous. The more reserves, it's like the rainy day funds, the more you use them, you don't have them anymore, you can end up in fiscal distress. And we see that in neighboring municipalities and towns. So it's really important that we, and schools, we it's really important that we focus on this and have a balanced approach to the financing of the operations of our programs here.
Right, we've been collecting that data for a long time, and the levy is typically, I'd say around, I don't have the average in my head. Iris, I think you've got something there that I printed out that the board has in their reports tonight. Anywhere between 1% and 2%, I think, has typically been the average since 2012-13, since I've been in this position. Some of them have been at 3, a little bit over 3. Some of them have been pretty low. I've seen school districts where their tax levy increase has been negative.
And remember, we're also, like it or not, but we're in a period, we've hopefully coming out of it, but we've been in a period of inflation. Our costs have gone up like everybody else's costs have gone up, hence the higher CPI rate. But it's important to note that we're not, just because we're, not-for-profit or a school district, we're not immune to those increases too.
Right.
So we have normal increases, and then we have the impact of inflation. So, all of those things, it's like a big family household budget, all of that gets impacted.
Iris?
I think it's fair to say that the last few years has impacted our staffing in particular, with more assistance, mental health assistance, and more requirements, more needs than we expected 3 or 4 years ago, really before COVID happened. So I certainly think that it's not unreasonable what we're doing here. I know it's very difficult to understand how a budget works. At least it's been very difficult for me, and I've sat here for many, many budgets. So I'm pretty good at it now. I still have questions on occasion, but I was wondering if the some School Business Administrators Association has a basic primer on what a budget is. Because just the fact that the percentage increase in the budget is misunderstood compared to the tax levy, that's a fundamental, that's fundamental information that many people do not understand. And so people in the community, we have a 7% increase in the budget, and people in the community think that it's a 7% increase in the tax levy. And that is the hardest piece of information to get people to understand, because it's the most misleading. So I'm wondering if maybe, Vince, you can take some time at some point and see if you can get a basic primer.
Sure, I'll try to dig something up, post it on.
Just the vocabulary alone is
Yeah,
worth
great
knowing.
idea. Sure.
I'm sure ASBO has it.
Yeah, I certainly can put something together.
I'd like to see it
NISBA.
available to the community, I really would. Thank you.
Would love to. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp.
You're welcome.
Move on to reports and correspondence. In regards to this, to the budget vote, just ask that, how you vote obviously is up to you, but we ask that you get out and vote and exercise your right to vote. It's a very important right. It's one that you've earned, and certainly you have a right to express it, so every vote counts. Any other board members for reports? No, move on to Superintendent Wiles.
Just a few things.
Excuse me, timeout, sorry, Ms. Jack Henry. How could I forget?
So for happenings and events for this week, on Thursday, the AP World Modern exam will take place. Also, the other half, there were 2 halves of the freshman class that were split up in separate trips with Mr. Mulhern and Miss Ashley, which were called Map My Future trips, which were provided by the Go Beyond Greatness program. And the second half of the freshman class will go on a trip to the Culinary Institute of America and SUNY Columbia Green on Thursday. The senior high symphonic band will be going on their band trip to perform, and at the end, and they will end off the day with a thrilling time at Six Flags New England, and that is on Friday. The senior high school concert will take place next Tuesday, and the junior high concert will take place next Thursday. Both concerts are at 7 o'clock in the high school auditorium. We encourage all that can make it to show up. Both concerts will be absolutely incredible, and both are putting a lot of hard work in. For athletics now, all spring sports continue their seasons, In track and field, we are seeing all kids participating in both modified and varsity and getting personal bests and breaking records. The varsity baseball team and softball teams hosted their senior night today, and I got a little bit of breaking news from Mr. Chasen while the board was in executive session. The softball team not only won their game today, but they won the Division III championship and will play Pine Plains on Saturday in the Mahal semifinals. That game will be in Highland. And finally, for fundraising, time is starting to tick. Don't miss out and buy your Blue Devils merchandise. The link is Junior Senior High School Student Council Blue Devils gear, or you can use the QR code where you can find it.
Thank you, Jack.
You're welcome.
Always informative. Thank you. We move on to Superintendent Wiles.
Yes, so just a few things. In board docs, under calendars, we've uploaded the dates to remember for the junior, senior high school for the board, and also the elementary. You can find it under the library, under calendars. So I had the opportunity this past week to meet with the senior class, families, parents, and students that are going on the senior class trip. The trip is leaving on June 2nd. We talked about expectations and code of conduct. It's very exciting. I'm sure we'll have a report for you when they get back. And we also have the prom coming up. So there's a lot. We're on the wind down and uptick of all the end of the year activities that are coming. Tomorrow night there'll be a P-TECH open house for our new P-TECH scholars coming in. And I do want to mention to the board that there's a leadership conference on July 28th and 29th up in Albany. You should be receiving information about that. Please let Nafisa know if you want to go. We'd like to get you.
What are the dates?
July 28th and 29th. Let Nafisa know if you want to go. It was a good conference last year, and if you're interested, we want to get on it early to make the necessary arrangements. And just one other thing, the NAACP is doing a Meet the Candidates via Zoom on May 11th at 6 o'clock. And those are the things, the items I have tonight.
Thank you. Assistant Superintendent for Business, Mr. Napoli.
Thank you. I'd like to report that I have some pictures. They're out on Facebook. They're in my board report. They're on our website about the new elementary school cafeteria construction. Three of the four, well, there's not really four walls, there's five, but let's just call it four for now. Three of the four walls are up. We're going to be next week pouring the slab, and they're doing some footing and foundation work now. Most of the equipment has been delivered. Some of the equipment, like the HVAC stuff that we had some lead times on, have been purchased and are in storage by our HVAC company, so we're looking good there. I've been sampling. I got a couple calls regarding our lunches in the elementary school. I will tell you that I took a visit, and I've been visiting the elementary school lunch line to look at the food, and I've posted some pictures. I sample the food in our cafeterias on a regular basis. When we come up with a hiccup, we speak to our food service management company and we tweak that. One of the feedbacks that we got were that the tortillas were cold, so we brainstormed and came up with the idea. It's called pancaking. We put all the tortillas in the oven and warm them, so when they come out to the line, they're actually warm and they're not cold. But anyway, there are pictures of our school lunches. There's high school and there's the elementary school lunches provided in my report. Pictures of the food service line. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I saw some other pictures on social media from other schools that have lunches. I'd like to either get a little informal committee of the board and you and Kelly and go around to some of these districts that really, I mean, their lunches were unbelievable. I mean, as far as what they offered, as far as salad bars went and things like that. And I'd like to know how they do it and what it would be to actually try to get it over this way as well.
Can certainly do that. I did ask for the other schools in Ulster County to email me some pictures of their school lunches, and they are comparable to what we have. So if you've got some feedback from specific schools, we can certainly go to them and talk to them to see what what they're doing differently than we have, but the schools from Ulster County that provided me lunches, I think it was Kingston, Highland, and maybe
I
Rondout.
think New Paltz too.
And New Paltz too, that they all, and I only asked at the elementary school level, that they seem to be pretty equal to what we have. They're following the USDA guidelines. Sometimes, and we had this during COVID, oftentimes it's the presentation of the food and it's not the quality of the food. The parents that I spoke to, the kids like the food, but sometimes it was, and Jack was at a meeting with us, it was the quantity. So I have to explain to members of the community that that's regulated by the USDA, but with a new food service contract, we're able to add a couple of items to maybe increase the volume. But I would love to take a visit to some very specific schools to see what they're doing different.
We got to take Jack with us, because I understand when he negotiated, he got some extra cheese, so we
When
need
we-
Jack.
Got it.
When we get the new cafeteria rolling down in the elementary school, I really do hope that that helps with the presentation and better serving lines. It's very cramped, and there's not a lot of offerings that could be made. So I'm hoping, we should be able to continue to improve as we open that venue up.
John?
Vince, before you go on your lunch tour of different school districts, how many tortillas did you have to eat to come up with your heating solution?
I didn't have to eat any of them. That was actually solved by somebody that was with me, along with the food service director.
Well, thank you for your extra effort.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to Ms. Kelly White.
Good evening. We did have our pre-K lottery yesterday, so we have the 18 students identified for our pre-K program and a wait list established for those who weren't picked. Letters will be going home in the next couple of days notifying families if their child has a spot in the program or if they're on the waiting list. And additionally, on May 25th, we have our career fair coming up. We have our finalized list of businesses and organizations. I included it in board docs. And we had and there's also a copy of the letter that was mailed home to students in grades 11 and 12. So we have 30 businesses and organizations participating, ranging anywhere from various healthcare providers, emergency medical providers, law enforcement, fire. I think we have all branches of the military, a couple trade unions, and then a couple local and outside of the area businesses as well. So we have a really great representation of different career pathways students can explore for the future or explore for immediate employment over the next 2.5 weeks while we prepare our students for the event. We're going to have posters up around the school reminding students of what businesses will be here, providing students resources to prepare for the career fair, whether that's questions that they might want to consider asking, access to the care closet so they have access to career attire for the career fair, and just using our screens throughout the building here to just again remind students of who will be here so they could do a little research in advance of the career fair.
Thank you. Jody?
How many students, applications did we get for pre-K?
We had 53, or 55.
And how many were accepted?
18.
Wow, that's big.
Okay. We'll move on to personnel resolutions for this evening. Under 6.1,
Can I ask a question before we move on, Mr. President?
yes.
And I'm sorry here, but Kelly, could you go back to the life skill courses that you put in the agenda here?
Sure.
When are our plans to start these courses?
So there's going to be a presentation at the next board meeting with Ms. Matarazza and I to go over the individual courses, but the goal is to roll these out next year.
So you're going to offer all of these courses next year?
Not necessarily every single one. We have to look at how many students we've identified for the first year of the program and see what grade levels they're in and what courses are appropriate based on their grade levels. They started doing some preliminary scheduling. So when we come back to do our presentation at the next board meeting, we can let you know which courses will actually be running next year and how many students are
And who will
slated
be
for them.
teaching these courses?
These courses can be taught by any teacher, anyone with a valid teaching certificate. So we noted that on there. So New York State does not designate a specific certification area. So we can look at the schedule to see, who has openings where they could fit one of these into their schedule.
So the superintendent has told us our numbers are dropping. We've experienced that. How would this affect our scheduling? Our elementary numbers are down if we put in teachers into extra life skills courses and things like that.
Well, can I answer
Yeah,
that?
go ahead.
So
Absolutely.
One of the things that we're looking at as, and has been a request of the board, is to offer more of these classes across the board. For instance, the half-year credit for financial literacy. There's always been that concern. So initially, we're starting with a life skills class that's more directed for students with disabilities, but hopefully we'll be able to open these classes. So as the enrollment decline, and these classes right now are just 7-12 classes, the enrollment decline we've seen primarily has been in the elementary school. But as those students progress up to 7-12, less teachers will be needed, and we might have openings in schedules to provide a section of one section, two sections, half-year sections of this with the staff that we have. So we're trying to get creative with the staff that we have, possibly not have to add additional staff, but if the programs are really successful, I know, like with financial literacy, community living, career exploration, there's been some requests from that for the board. So we're going to try this out, see how it goes, and hopefully use the staff we have as we start to shrink.
I see that NICET is listed here as having developed guidelines for these courses. This is a NICET initiative? Or is it just something that they offer?
No, New York State has a comprehensive course catalog that when districts are putting together their course offerings, whether they be required courses or electives, they have to make sure that what they're offering is aligned to what to a course that NICET said is appropriate for students. So it's really up to the building principal, is what's been communicated by State Ed, to review the course proposal and the scope and sequence to make sure it meets like the rigor and requirements to earn credit towards graduation.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to continue with our resolutions. 6.1, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, be it resolved the following substitute personnel be appointed for the 22-23 school year. There are 3.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? I will abstain. My daughter's on a list. Resignation 6.2. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, be resolved that the resignation of Mercedes Linhart, special education teacher, be accepted for the purposes of retirement, effective July 1st, 2023, with regret.
Second.
Seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? No one? Motion passes. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, be it resolved that the resignation of Hillary Ramming, ENL teacher, be accepted for the purposes of retirement, effective June 30th, 2023, with regret.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? No one? Motion passes. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, be it resolved the resignation of Stephanie Kraft, elementary teacher, be accepted for the purposes of retirement, effective June 30th, 2023, with regret.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? No one? Motion passes. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, be it resolved the resignation of Andrea Mao, elementary music teacher, be accepted effective June 30th,
So moved.
2023. It's been moved. Seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? No one. Motion passes. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, be it resolved that Jessica Rodriguez be appointed substitute security attendant at a rate of $17 per hour, work effective May 2nd, 2023 through June 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? No one? Motion carries. Did you upload the other motion?
Yes.
I don't have it on mine. What number is that going to be?
6.9?
Well,
Yeah.
I'll have to reload it. That's all right, I'll just reload it. Well, we're on 6.7. 6.7, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, be resolved the memorandum of agreement between the Ellenville Central School District and the ETS RPA Teachers Unit be approved as attached.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Is that, yeah, I just have a quick question. Is that something that would become a part of a future contract?
If it's negotiated, we've been doing this on year to year, so next time we're negotiating the full contract, we'll consider the language.
Okay.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor? Opposed? No one? Motion carries. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, be resolved that Jennifer Young be appointed part-time cafeteria monitor at a rate of $16.45 per hour worked, not to,
So moved.
been moved.
Second.
Second, discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? No one? Motion carries. Magnifying glass. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, be resolved that Dina Bruce be appointed as a security attendant at a rate of $18.04 per hour worked, not to exceed.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? No one? Motion carries. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, be resolved that the following P-TECH teachers be approved to work on May 10th, 2023, not to exceed 1 hour. Open house at their hourly rate.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. None? All those in favor? Opposed? No one? Motion carries. Be it resolved, the superintendent of schools is authorized to approve up to 3.5 hours for pre-K and kindergarten night screening on June 1st, 2023 for the following faculty and staff at their hourly rate.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Excuse me, you can count me as abstaining. Yep, my wife's on there. Budget resolutions, 7.1.
Can we move 7.1 and 7.2?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? No one? Motion carries. 8.1, cooperative bidding. Whereas it is the desire of the participating school districts that the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, Ulster County, adopting this resolution to jointly request bids for certain commodities to be determined by the superintendent of the school district from time to time for the 23-24 school year. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Ellenville Central...
So moved.
Been moved.
Second.
Seconded. Just gonna keep going. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? No one? Motion carries. Student IEPs for this evening. Be it resolved the attached list of student IEPs be acknowledged as appropriate. There are 50.
So
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Anybody want to move all the construction resolutions?
Mr. President, move 10-1 through 10-9.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? No one? Motion carries. Under other resolutions for this evening. 11.1, be it resolved the Board of Education, the Ellenville Central School District approve the service agreement with Mid-Hudson
So
Interpretive.
moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
Seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? No one? Motion carries. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, the Ellenville Central School District approve the consultant agreement with Dr. Richard
So
Hahn.
moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? No one?
Motion to move 11.4 through 11.8.
Second.
I need 11.3 to be moved.
11-3 to 11.
11.3 to 11.8.
11.3 to 11.8.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Discussion.
just
All
one
the-
quick question.
Yes.
The Ulster County School Boards Association membership is due. I just want to know if anybody's attending those meetings. Does anybody go? I mean, we used to, so,
Yeah, I think I went
This
to
year?
one, I think I went to one with you. I think Lisa went to one.
not generally though, right? I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't be part of the
Yeah,
association,
I
I'm
think there's
just,
only like 3 or 4 meetings, so I think that we've been represented probably out of 2 or 3, 2 to 3 of them. So
Yeah.
there's not representation at every meeting.
okay, all right, thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Opposed? No one. Motion carries. Set your calendars for the next meeting, which is next Tuesday. It'll be a short meeting, special meeting, following the budget vote to accept the budget results. And then following that, our following meeting, regular scheduled meeting, will be May 23rd at our regular time. And then anybody would like to see anything on the May 23rd agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Been moved, seconded, discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? We're adjourned.